There is a single molecule flowing through your blood right now that has more influence over how long you live than almost anything else you can name. It is not a vitamin. It is not a drug. It is a hormone that your own body produces. It builds your muscles when you are young. It heals your wounds. It sharpens your mind. And if it stays too high for too long, it will accelerate the very processes that make you old. This hormone is called IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1, and understanding it might be the closest thing we have to understanding how to live longer. IGF-1 is produced mainly in your liver, but the command to produce it comes from somewhere else. Deep in your brain, the pituitary gland releases another hormone called growth hormone. Growth hormone travels through your blood to your liver, where it knocks on the door of liver cells and tells them to manufacture and release IGF-1. This is the growth hormone IGF-1 axis, and it is one of the most ancient and powerful signaling systems in your body. When you are a child, this system runs at full throttle. Growth hormone surges, IGF-1 floods your tissues, and your bones lengthen, your muscles expand, your organs grow. Every cell in your body has receptors for IGF-1. When IGF-1 binds to those receptors, it triggers a cascade inside the cell that says one thing: grow, divide, build. This is how you become an adult. But here is where the story takes a strange turn. Once you reach adulthood, your growth hormone and IGF-1 levels begin a long, slow decline. By the time you are 60, your IGF-1 levels are roughly half of what they were at 20. For decades, scientists looked at this decline and assumed it was a bad thing. They called it the somatopause, the growth hormone menopause. They reasoned that if low IGF-1 came with old age, then giving older people more IGF-1 should make them younger. It made perfect sense. It was also wrong. The first hint that something else was going on came from a completely unexpected direction. It came from worms, tiny transparent worms called C. elegans, which live in soil and eat bacteria. Scientists discovered that if you mutate a single gene in these worms, a gene that is part of the insulin and IGF-1 signaling pathway, the worms live twice as long. Not 10% longer. Twice as long. And they do not just live longer in a frail, decrepit state. They stay healthy, active, and youthful for almost their entire extended lifespan. The same mutation that extends life also extends healthspan. This finding was so astonishing that scientists immediately looked for the same pathway in other species. They found it in fruit flies. Mutations that reduced insulin and IGF-1 signaling doubled their lifespan too. They found it in mice. Mice with lower IGF-1 signaling lived up to 40% longer and stayed healthier. And then they looked at humans. And what they found upended everything we thought we knew about growth hormone and aging. There is a rare group of people in the world who have a condition called Laron syndrome. They have a genetic mutation that makes their bodies unable to respond to growth hormone. Their IGF-1 levels are extremely low. They are short in stature, which is the most visible effect. But here is the shocking part. They almost never get cancer. They almost never get type 2 diabetes. And study after study has found that, despite their hormone deficiency, they do not die young. In fact, they appear to be protected against the major diseases of aging. At the other end of the spectrum, people with acromegaly, a condition where the body produces too much growth hormone and IGF-1, have the opposite fate. They suffer from higher rates of cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and overall mortality. Too much of the growth signal, and the body burns out faster. This is the paradox at the heart of aging research. The same hormone that makes you strong and vital in youth makes you age faster when it stays elevated into later life. To understand why, you have to understand what IGF-1 is actually doing inside your cells. When IGF-1 binds to its receptor, it activates a chain of proteins inside the cell. The most important of these is a protein called mTOR. mTOR is the master switch for growth. When mTOR is active, the cell is in build mode. It makes proteins. It divides. It grows. It does not clean itself. It does not repair its damaged parts. It is too busy growing to take out the trash. This is fine when you are young and need to build a body. But when you are older, your cells need to do something else. They need to engage in a process called autophagy. Autophagy literally means self-eating. It is the cellular recycling program. The cell wraps up old damaged proteins, broken mitochondria, and other junk, and breaks them down into raw materials that can be reused. Autophagy is how your cells stay young. It is the cleaning crew that never stops, unless mTOR tells it to. When IGF-1 is high, mTOR stays on and autophagy stays off. The cells keep building, keep growing, but they never clean house. Damaged components accumulate. Mitochondria, the power plants of your cells, become leaky and inefficient, spewing out free radicals that damage DNA. Proteins misfold and clump together. The cellular machinery grinds down. Over months and years, this accumulated damage is what we call aging. When IGF-1 is lower, mTOR quiets down and autophagy activates. The cells clean themselves. Damaged mitochondria are recycled and replaced with fresh ones. Misfolded proteins are cleared away. DNA repair pathways become more active. The cell is not growing, but it is maintaining itself. And maintenance, it turns out, is the secret to a longer life. This is why caloric restriction extends lifespan in almost every species tested. When you eat less, your insulin levels drop, and your IGF-1 levels drop with them. Your body senses that nutrients are scarce. It shifts out of growth mode and into maintenance mode. mTOR turns off, autophagy turns on. The cells clean house, and the animal lives longer. This is also why intermittent fasting has such profound effects. When you go for extended periods without food, insulin and IGF-1 drop to baseline. mTOR stays off for hours at a time. Even if you eat the same number of calories overall, simply compressing your eating into a shorter window gives your body more time in maintenance mode, more time to clean, repair, and rejuvenate. And this is why protein, especially animal protein, has a complicated relationship with longevity. Protein is the most powerful stimulator of IGF-1 in the diet. When you eat a large steak or drink a whey protein shake, your IGF-1 levels spike. This is great if you are a bodybuilder trying to add muscle. It may not be so great if you are a 50-year-old trying to live to 90. The amino acid leucine, which is abundant in animal protein, is a direct activator of mTOR. Every high-protein meal is a signal to your cells to grow, not to clean. This does not mean you should eat no protein. Protein is essential for muscle maintenance, immune function, and overall health, especially as you age. But it does suggest that the modern obsession with high-protein everything may be sending a constant growth signal. There is another piece to this puzzle that makes the story even more interesting. It involves a protein called FOXO. FOXO is a transcription factor, which means it turns genes on and off. When IGF-1 signaling is low, FOXO moves into the nucleus of the cell and activates a whole battery of protective genes. Genes that repair DNA, genes that fight oxidative stress, genes that enhance autophagy, genes that kill off precancerous cells. FOXO is the cellular guardian, and IGF-1 keeps it locked out of the nucleus. When IGF-1 binds to its receptor, it triggers a chemical reaction that traps FOXO outside the nucleus. The guardian is silenced, but when IGF-1 drops, FOXO moves in and does its work. This is one of the key mechanisms by which lower IGF-1 extends lifespan. It is not that low IGF-1 itself is magical. It is that low IGF-1 releases the brakes on FOXO, and FOXO is the real hero of longevity. The same story plays out with another protein called AMPK. AMPK is the energy sensor of the cell. When energy is low, AMPK activates and tells the cell to conserve, repair, and switch to efficient fuel sources like fat. Exercise also activates AMPK, which is one of the reasons exercise extends lifespan. It mimics some of the same cellular signals as caloric restriction. So here is the picture that emerges from decades of research. Your body has two fundamental metabolic states: growth mode, driven by IGF-1, insulin, and mTOR, and maintenance mode driven by low IGF-1, AMPK, FOXO, and autophagy. In youth, growth mode dominates because you need it. In age, growth mode should naturally decline, giving maintenance mode more time. But modern life keeps growth mode switched on. The constant availability of food, especially protein-rich food, keeps insulin and IGF-1 elevated. Sedentary living keeps AMPK low. Chronic stress elevates cortisol. Lack of sleep impairs autophagy. The goal is not zero IGF-1. You need it. Without any IGF-1, your heart would weaken, your bones would thin, and your brain would suffer. The goal is to let it drop when it should drop. The most practical way to do this is through your eating pattern. Time-restricted eating gives your body 14 to 16 hours a day with low insulin and low IGF-1. Periodic longer fasts, even just a day of very low calorie intake occasionally, can trigger deeper autophagy. And moderating protein intake can keep IGF-1 from being constantly elevated. There is also a fascinating connection to a drug called Rapamycin. Rapamycin directly inhibits mTOR. It was discovered in soil bacteria on Easter Island. It is one of the most powerful lifespan extending compounds ever found. You do not need to wait for a drug, though. The same pathway can be modulated by when and what you eat, by how you move, and by how often you let your body rest from the constant signal to grow. Every time you finish your last meal of the day and give your body a long stretch without food, you are lowering IGF-1, quieting mTOR, releasing FOXO, and activating autophagy. You are telling your cells to stop building and start cleaning. You are shifting from growth mode to longevity mode. This is not about deprivation, it is about rhythm. The human body evolved with cycles of feast and fast, activity and rest, growth and repair. The modern world has flattened those cycles into a constant state of mild excess. Food always available. Protein at every meal. Snacks between meals. The growth signal never turns off, and so the maintenance signal never fully turns on. Understanding IGF-1 changes how you think about aging. Aging is not just the passage of time. It is the accumulation of cellular damage that happens when maintenance cannot keep up with wear and tear. The rate of that accumulation is not fixed. It is controlled, and the master controller is the growth hormone IGF-1 axis. Lower it too much and you become frail. Keep it too high and you burn out faster. The art of longevity is finding the sweet spot, where growth happens when it is needed, and repair happens when it is needed. Where your cells get the signal to clean themselves regularly and deeply. You cannot stop time, but you can tell your cells what to do with the time they have. And the message, it turns out, is very simple. It is time to clean house.